afternoon, evening, y'all. I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I'm your guide here today in discovering more about life beyond codependency. And I'm excited to help you accomplish more of knowing, loving, living, and trusting who you are in your world beyond codependency. So today will be episode 12 of Creating Happy Relationships, and you'll probably, if you're following me, realize that doesn't make sense because yesterday was episode 13, and that's because I screwed up the numbering, so I'm going to get this ordered right now. So today we're excuse me there, just getting over that cough, getting over this flu. So today we're going to be exploring this concept called entitlement and obligation versus consent and privilege, and how I use these to help us reduce unnecessary conflict in relationship, raise intimacy, and create more connection. But before we get to that, I need to share this out to the community real quick. And the community is your safe haven where you can find guidance, support, tools in your journey back to knowing, loving, living, and trusting who you are. You can find that link above on Facebook, below on YouTube, and you can also find the rules for the community there. Check those rules out. Make sure that they are compatible with what you need in a community, and then if they are, apply to join. I add new members on Wednesdays and Sundays. So I'm going to get us shared out to there. Let me know how you guys are doing. Say hi in the comments below, and let me type a word. And voila, and neat things happen, and here we are. All right. So, in most relationships, actually, we tend to come from a child-level view of attachment, needs, and wants. And this child-level view typically shows up as a sense of entitlement or expectation, and then a sense of obligation. So, entitlement and expectations show up as I deserve this from this person and I expect it from them. And a lot of times these are unconscious aspects of, or unconscious elements we bring into the relationship, because we have a fantasy a lot of times about the way the relationship should look, the way it should work, how it behaves, and those show up as expectations. Now, expectations, when they're not met, result in resentment and frustration and unnecessary conflict between you and the other persons you're in relationship with. And that's one of the challenges here, because maturing into adulthood means we have to mature our expectations of other people. What that shows up as is my expectations either convert to a request of another person, or they convert to a standard that then I use to determine if someone is compatible with what I'm looking for in this particular type of relationship I'm out trying to create in my life. This way, we are not trying to impose our expectations, our standards on someone else. Instead, we're looking for where we fit with them and where they fit with us. Because from there, we can build consent. Because fundamentally, my approach to relationships is that relationship, connection, being with someone is a privilege. It is not something I am entitled to with anyone for any reason. That's the opposite here. So consent and privilege are the opposite of this entitlement and obligation component. So if I come from entitlement, I often also come from obligation when I am relating with someone, because a lot of times our internal thinking system, our internal value system is projected onto the other person as well. So the way we think is we think they think or value the same things without actually gaining clarity around that. It's one of those ways in which expectations get us. Because if I go into a relationship expecting that they're going to be, for instance, we'll just go for the bare minimum, they're going to be trustworthy, and then they're not, and I'm upset about that, I haven't been paying attention, honestly. My job is not to impose these things on people. It's to discover what they are. And so when we come into entitlement and obligation, or we're operating in a relationship with entitlement, we also believe that the other person's entitled to things from us, and that tends to breed a sense of obligation to them. And that obligation feels like pressure, feels like a demand, feels like something we have to do or should do, and that tends to breed resentment. It also, entitlement, expectation, and obligation tend to live in the land of mind reading, where we're trying to either mind read and divine what they want, or they're doing that to us. We are not actually communicating, we're guessing. And this gets into the culture of guessing, rather than actually being direct, clear, and simple, and asking for what we need. And this is why I go towards consent and privilege. It makes it easier. Because if I'm coming from entitlement, expectation, obligation, there isn't communication, there isn't intimacy, there isn't a space in which vulnerability can build intimacy and trust. Instead, there's this tacit form of control in the background. Because there's one thing you're gonna discover in relationships is when trust is low, control goes high. Just take a moment and check in with your experience with relationships. If you didn't trust them, are you trying to control them? And if you trusted them, what does your control do? It typically goes down. So when trust is high, control goes low. And when trust is low, control goes high in the relationship. And that's going to show up inadvertently through this kind of idea of entitlement and obligation. The solution I've experienced with this is consent and privilege. So consent is I'm asking for something. I'm asking them for their time, their attention, their affection. I'm for feedback. And the reason why is because these things are their resources. They are not something I have a right to in any way, even in a committed relationship. I don't view that, oh, well, this person is my person and they're supposed to give me these things because they're my person. That isn't true. This is an autonomous person, a whole being. And their resources, their time, their attention, their affection, their body, their energy, all of that are theirs exclusively, and no one else's. I don't have a right to those things, but I can ask. And when I ask, I gain access to intimacy and vulnerability. I gain an understanding of where they're at and what they're able or willing to give right now. And they gain access to my respect for them. They feel seen, they feel valued, they feel cared for. There's a huge amount of softness that enters a relationship when we're asking rather than demanding or expecting something from someone else. Further, there's a lot less unnecessary conflict, confusion, and frustration in the relationship because now we're actually communicating. We're connecting with each other. We're seeing and understanding each other and building that through that understanding more intimacy, more understanding of what our awareness of our compatibility and our differences. We're able to navigate those things real time. This approach of consent and privilege allows us to have a real-time experience with this human being. That's the beauty of it. We become present with them. They become present with us. So we're not moving into something with these expectations. We're moving into it with a desire that we want to ask for or share, and then they're able to consent and receive or contribute. What a beautiful way in which to build lasting intimacy in our world. So that's why I go at it. The other element of privilege here is privilege. What I mean by privilege goes back to that concept of resources. I am not entitled to anything from them. It is a privilege to have their time, their affection, their attention, the connection I have. This breeds gratitude. And through that gratitude, it breeds kindness and safety and well-being, which are the antithesis of resentment, control, and positive and low regard for the other person. It raises positive regard. It builds trust. And it builds a special warmth between you and these other individuals that you're connected to. So, my friends, when you're exploring a relationship, you're building these things out in your world, check in with yourself. Am I going at this from a space of entitlement or expectation? And if I am, convert that to a request so that now you're moving into the consent realm and see what happens when you ask for what you want. You may not necessarily get it in that moment, but you're going to have a discussion. And if you do this consistently and perpetually, you're going to find more warmth, more understanding, and more care developing between you and the other people you're doing this with. You're also going to notice your conflicts go down and your clarity goes up, which means trust goes up. The need to control things goes down. It feels safer. It feels more warm. It feels more empowering. Now, if you would like assistance in understanding more about consent and privilege and how entitlement and obligations show up in your relationships, what to do with it, and how to build lasting resiliency in your connections and in intimacy in your relationships, come join me in the relationship strategy. Enrollment closes this Friday. Class starts this Sunday. With this enrollment, you get access to the Happiness After Codependency system, which includes lifetime unlimited access to both the relationship strategy, live classes, and its recordings, so you never lose access to anything, as well as the live and recorded versions of the Self-Trust course, the Heal Yourself strategy, and the Know Yourself strategy. So you get all 4 core steps to help you move from codependency to happy interdependency in your world. So enrollment is open right now. We've got 14 seats left. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube, or on my front page if you're listening via podcast. Come join us, and let's create happy relationships of any type in your world together. So there you go, my friends. Go out there, explore entitlement and obligation and consent and privilege in your relating. See what shows up for you. Let me know what you discover in the comments below. Go gently with yourselves, my friends, and I'll see you in our next training. Bye-bye.